Good morning, everyone. The Lubavitcher Rabbi famously said that Sigmund Freud had gesucht Schmutz, which in Yiddish means he was looking for filth in the human psyche. So he discovered the id. The id is the primal, instinctual drive for pleasure and sexuality and desire. He said that's the essence of man. The Rebbe said, had he dug a little deeper, beneath the id, he would have found the yid, which is the Jew, the Jewish soul. In this week's Torah portion, we find that the Jewish people, remarkably, were so generous when it came to the construction of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and donated so much gold and silver and copper to the point that Moses had to announce that we're no longer accepting contributions because we have more than enough. And here we find that it talks about the Nesiim, the leaders, the 12 Nesiim who were the tribal leaders, and each one of them gave one of the 12 stones for the breastplate of the high priest. But when it mentions that the Nesiim, the leaders of the tribes, gave their stones, it's spelled without the Yud. The Yud in the word Nesiim is missing. And the rabbis say, why is the Yud missing? Because the leaders made a mistake. You see, when Moses announced to give contributions, they said to Moses, listen, get whatever you can from the community, from the Jewish people, and whatever's lacking, we're the leaders, we're wealthy individuals, we'll fill in the balance. But at the end, the Jews gave more than enough. And so the Nesiim had nothing to give, and they were disappointed. So Moses said, okay, you can't give for the building of the Mishkan because we have more than we need. You'll give the stones for the breastplate of the high priest. And that's why it's missing a letter Yud, to show that they erred in their decision. But the question is, after all, that's a very generous offer. Think of any fundraiser, any rabbi who's trying to build a synagogue, and a wealthy man says to him, listen, Rabbi, do the best you can, raise whatever you can. Whatever you're missing in the campaign, I'll fill out the budget. I'll cover the balance. That would be the most wonderful, generous offer. What was wrong with what they did by saying, we'll fill in whatever's lacking? And one of the beautiful interpretations is that their mistake was that they assumed that the Jewish people wouldn't rise to the occasion and give enough, and that there would be a deficit, a lacking. And that's the lesson of the missing Yud. Don't underestimate the Jewish soul. Don't underestimate a Jew. Don't underestimate those who you lead. To be a leader means to have faith and believe in the people. If you don't believe they're going to rise to the occasion and fulfill the responsibilities, they won't, unfortunately. But if you believe in them, that's what it means to be a leader, and that's the lesson. Always believe. Don't just look at the id. Look at the yid. Look at what lies beneath the surface. It's a story told about the Alter Rebbe, Rav Scheiner Zaman of Liadi. He once came to a town. He was trying to raise money for a Jew who was being held prisoner, and they were demanding ransom money, and they needed 5,000 rubles. And there was this one wealthy man in town, lived in a big mansion, but he was a known miser. Anyone who came to him for charity, he would give him one little rusty coin, a ruble. And that's all he would give. And nobody liked him in town. And the Alter Rebbe said, I want to go to this miser. And they said, you're wasting your time. He said, I want to go. And so his Hasidim, 2 Hasidim, went with him. And he said, just don't say anything. He came into the wealthy man's mansion. He told him about the plight of this Jew who needs to be rescued. And the wealthy man said, sure, I'd love to help. And he took out his one rusty ruble and he gave it to him. And instead of being disappointed like everyone else who would throw it back in his face, the Alter Rebbe said, thank you so much. Let me write you a receipt. He wrote him a beautiful receipt and added beautiful words of blessings for him, shook his hand warmly, looked him in the eyes admiringly, and proceeded to leave the house. As soon as they left the house, the door closed behind them. They started going down the steps. The man opens the door and says, Rabbi, come back in. He says, tell me, how much money do you need? He said, I need 5,000 ruble. He says, I decided I want to give 1,000 ruble. He went from 1 to 1,000. He put down 1,000 ruble of bills, and the rabbi once again thanked him and shook his hand and wrote him another beautiful receipt with more words of blessing and admiration. And then he left again. And then once again, the door closes. They start leaving down the steps. And the door opens again. He says, Rabbi, come back in. I decided I want to give you all the money. And he gives him 5,000 ruble. Once again, the rabbi thanks him so much, blesses him, and leaves. When he leaves, the Hasidim say, Rabbi, what just happened? You performed a miracle. You got him to go from 1 ruble to 5,000. He never gives more than 1 ruble. And the rabbi said, Alter Rebbe said, the truth is this man is not a miser. But unfortunately, he never experienced the joy of giving tzedakah. Because everyone would admonish him when he gave less than his capacity, and they would throw the penny back in his face. But for the first time, he felt the joy of giving tzedakah, and therefore he fulfilled his responsibility and gave the entire sum. When you believe in people, when you show them you love, and you support them, then they don't want to disappoint you. On the contrary, it brings out their better self, and they fulfill their responsibilities. That's the message of the Nisiyim. Don't ever underestimate a fellow Jew. Have a wonderful day.